Well, hi. How you doing? Have you got your books? Have you got your Lenormand? Um, I'm on the wrong side of the bed. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. There's a cord up my dress. You just could hold on a second. It's all happening. I gotta. Yeah. Yeah. Is this? Nailed it. Hello, Sally. Hello, Johnny O Twitch. It's good to see you both. Figuratively. I hope you like my new boudoir setup. Yes, there are actually curtains. I decided to actually have curtains. These curtains have a story, of course. We're still in my bed and we're still in my bedroom, but these red velvet curtains used to hang in my venue called The Kettle. And they used to go on the road with me when I would need a backdrop. And they've hung in several homes that I've lived in. And now they're here. They've found their home. And, you know, like a piece of gum, I do like to be foiled by my curtains. I made those curtains. I found the material, which that kind of heavy velvet, it's actually a curtain material, a theatrical curtain material, at this fabric, oh, it fell off of a truck place a million years ago. And they had it in black and blue and red, and I think maybe green. And I could only afford to buy one color's worth, and so I chose the maroon. I don't regret my choices. I do not. But I do wish I had also gone back and gotten the blue. And I just bought the yardage and then I sewed them into curtains. And these, there are some extra fun little. There we are. Going on as well that I bought from a thrift store a million years ago to turn into a cape or some shit, and I haven't done it yet. But now I'm at like a boudoir level 6. Or a bordello level 6, I should say. Boudoir, it is a boudoir because it is the room in which I sleep, but a bordello level 6. I've got my nightcap on. I hope you do as well. How was your week? Thank you. Thank you for noticing. I'm really happy. I'm really tired actually because I spent so much time hanging curtains today. Um, and but I really love it. I'm so glad I finally put the effort in. I've been living here for 2 months, just in a half state of nesting. I haven't finished hanging art or nesting, and I regret that. But off to my right, which you cannot see, is a wall of scarves. And now I have my bordello, and you can, you know, it's still behind me. The window is still behind me. We can still, you know, check on the neighbors in the later months. And yes, I'm really enjoying it. And it's going to be so dark tomorrow morning because because I didn't have curtains before, I was waking up quite early with the sun. And so I think I might sleep in radically tomorrow. It will be luscious. It will be luscious. This is my usual check-in to say hello, everyone. I am your GlamourHobo bedtime tale teller. This is the GlamourHobo bedtime tales. We are streaming to you on the Nat21 Adventures Twitch and YouTube, and we are coming from Chickahominy Land, in what is now known as Virginia. And where are you? Please drop it in the chats where you are. Tell me how your week has been. what stories you read, and songs that you loved, and people you kissed, and drop me a story in the chats. I will be warmer tonight, definitely, because there's no storm window, so there's a significant breeze that comes from this window. But I like crawling out onto my roof, if I'm honest. I do. There. Okay. I've handled the shining from the lights. Tell me how you are, darlings. As usual, we will be writing a story together using the Lenormand deck. And we are going to continue reading Station 11 because I love this book and it is timely. Not a great week in New Jersey. But you just started Devil's Dance by Eric Henry Vick. Is that, what kind of a story is that? It sounds like mystery? Or is it sci-fi? And all is well in Northern Virginia. Good to know. All right. My week has been enormous and huge. I started working for an immersive experience company here in Richmond, and we're getting our sea legs underneath us as they open this new thing that doesn't exist anywhere else, and that is very exciting. And so I have been wearing a lot of makeup and a gown, a beaded gown every day, and walking around with a glass of champagne in my hands, being fucking delightful. And it's really interesting, but it has taken a lot of adjustment being around people again. So many people. So that's been new, and we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you informed. Everything's good in Northern Virginia. Okay. What do I think? Well, so this will be your rant for the day. Strap in. Also, as usual, I need to check in about sound. How does it sound? Is it blowing out? Is it clipping? Is it too loud? Or can you hear me nice and clearly? How do I feel about cryptocurrency? I think that different currencies are important in this world because we have to be able to track the economies region by region, nation by nation. We are not a one-size-fits-all set of creatures. Different people want different things in different places. That is important. Even different neighborhoods and different areas inside of the US had different currency systems until pretty friggin' recently. And some of them are now toying with that again, not to replace the dollar, but to enhance their local economies and encourage people to use local dollars literally in localities. So the Berkshires are an example of this. They have a system where they have, they call them Berk shares, like actual like shares in the economy. They're like dollars. But apparently the rules are that you can have a local currency, but it cannot replace the dollar, and it cannot look anything like the dollar, and you cannot let people think it's dollars. So there's a clear aesthetic visual line, and so people won't get confused. But it's an interesting and cool way, especially for tourists, to kind of participate in a local economy. So cryptocurrency is crypto currencies are a purely digital version of this. It does not exist in fiat currency, as we say, in physical things that you can hold in your hands. A cryptocurrency is something that exists in the ether. There's actually one called Ethereum, and it is there are loads of them. There are dozens and dozens of kinds of different cryptocurrencies, and the people that buy into them and believe in them spur the economy of them. They're wildly unregulated. They're wildly like what they translate to in American dollars and euros is like crazy up and down every single day. Excuse me. And you, as to Sally's question, is you don't mine for a mineral or an item like you mine for gold or you mine for diamonds. What it is it's kind of how like 3D printing is not printing. 3D printing is the word we use to describe a construction process that's piece by piece in a three-dimensional place, even though that is not what printing is. But mining is a word that we are using for the act of finding, let's say, this kind of money that only exists in this digital realm. So cryptocurrency mining is not actually any kind of physical thing. What it is a lot of computers running very, very hot, using a shit ton of energy in order to crack codes and use blockchain systems in order to create the currency. So I'm a little shaky on it past that point about like what is the physical like thing that it's doing. But what I can tell you is that the energy expended in the mining process to run computers and then run computer server banks and then run the air conditioning systems and the fan systems, the cooling systems to keep those things physically at a level that they can function is astronomical. It is so bad for the environment because it pulls so much energy. And I'm not saying like, oh, it's like a lot of energy, you know, like, meh. I mean, like, there was a report just a few months ago that NFT mining, which is a different thing, but in a similar, it's like structured the same way, but it's about art. NFT mining in China, just NFTs, which is not as big as cryptocurrency, there was a mine that was generating the same, not generating, excuse me, it was using the same amount of energy as the country of Argentina. The country of Argentina. And that is for something smaller, an economy smaller than cryptocurrencies. So, in my opinion, and Johnny is saying in the chats, like there are ciphers to keep them unique, like long mathematical problems. They call it blockchain codes that are unique. They match an online ledger. Blockchain also has a lot to do with like it's decentralized, so there's no way to copy it. You're not a fan of them since they aren't really based on anything and are often used by people for shady purposes. Duck NFTs. I don't know what a duck NFT is. But I would say that because they're wildly unregulated, sure, it's people can use it for drugs or sex trafficking or human trafficking or buying off politicians or like or whatever, like buying guns, like whatever. People use hard cash for that as well. It's never stopped them from doing bad things. Like this cryptocurrency isn't going to make more crime. Just like porn does, like porn and crime or any kind of crime are the industries that will figure out the new technology before anybody else figures it out. If it's video, if it's internet, if it, like they will figure it out first because they know that that's where the money is. But I just think that the energy usage is the biggest problem. It is creating these heat sinks and just using so much power, which is often fueled by coal. And it's just accelerating. Like the whole like, oh, the fossil fuel industry, it's so bad. I'm like, it is bad. Farming is bad. The fashion industry is bad. And now we have cryptocurrency that's contributing this like strangely amorphous amount of pollution. But I think that perhaps people don't quite understand its danger or its importance because it's not actually creating something physical that they can touch. And that is something very new for human beings and civilization to grasp. That is my rant. Ransomware, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a new digital revolution, friends. But my rant is I don't have any feelings about cryptocurrency being inherently bad because it's not dollars or euros. I have a problem with the fact that it requires an enormous amount of rare earth minerals to build computers and servers to do the mining, and then it's creating enormous amounts of waste in the energy system. And if we're not taking climate action now, when the fuck are we taking it? You really know how to make me rant. I've had a lot of frustration pent up, so thank you for that. That's the rants. How about we make a story together instead? Rant over. All right. I like to think that my rants are coherent and that that they're meaningful and well thought out, but also passionate. Perhaps we all learn something at the end of the day. I don't know. All right, darlings. I need 3 numbers. 3 numbers, please. If you're just lurking and listening, just do us a favor, darlings, and drop a number between 1 and 36 in the chat. 9. I've got a 9. I've got a 9. Ooh, the bouquet. 2 more, 2 more. I need 2 more numbers. I was so tired the other night at work, and I had just trays and trays of empty champagne glasses. And I just started writing a country song about empty glasses. Empties! Y'all don't know about all my empties. I got my heart broke, so I'm drinking tonight. I'm making empties. It got real silly, real fast. Real silly, real fast. Lucid, concise, and entertaining. 32. All right, I'm going to choose the last one. 32. Where is our number 32? 32. Ooh, it's the moon. I think we had 32 last week as well. The moon, the bouquet, and 17. Empties. I kind of felt like Creed. It reminded me of Creed. Rah, 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 rah. Wah! Or Pearl Jam. Could have been some Pearl Jam. I never listened to Pearl Jam. God, the people were so obsessed with them when I was in high school. I just gave no shits at all. 17. Ooh, the Stork. Haven't talked about the Stork. Johnny O Twitch says, country songline, even for thieves there should be rules, 'cause what kind of man would steal a man's tool? All right, maybe we can write a country song together tonight. Even for thieves there should be rules, 'cause what kind of man would steal a man's tool? You've been hung out and strung out and lied all the way, but even with hammers, you're finding your way. Oh my goodness. You were walking down that street all alone, and that garage door was open and prone. The lawnmowers and hatchets were there for the taking, but all you saw was the drill and the raking. Even for thieves there should be rules, 'cause what kind of man steals another man's tool? I cannot be stopped. Now I'm obsessed. All right, here's the thing. I can't lean against my back wall anymore because of the curtains. All right. Was it 9:32:17? Mm-hmm. It was getting near midnight. You hadn't been home. The moon was over and it was aglow. You'd been feeling a mighty strong and guilt for not being there, snuggling under your quilt. You'd brought home flowers to apologize, knowing you'd see such disappointment in their eyes. You'd picked out the lilies, the roses, and ribbon, hoping that you could apologize and be forgiven. But why, oh why had you gone away? Why, oh why were you gone astray? The stork had found you again, that watering hole of broken men. Oh why had you gone away? Oh why were you gone astray? The stork had found you again, that watering hole of broken men. I don't know, I think I kind of like this. I think I might love it, actually. I think I might love the idea of writing a country song with the Lenormand. Country songs are just stories, right? Country songs are just stories. I think I love it. I haven't sung in a minute. So 17 is the stork. The stork stands for a sudden delivery. It can also stand for older knowledge, like knowledge from elders. Yeah, gifts on the air, things arriving, like physical things being given to you, responsibilities. Of course, number 9, perennial favorite. Haha, perennial, get it? The bouquet is about gifts, friendship, unexpected kindness. And 32, our old favorite, the moon. It's about dreams and the subconscious and nighttime, and what we do in the shadows. Huzzah! All right. We're right on track. Storks also stand on one leg sometimes. We're right on track for the first half hour of ranting and storytelling, and now to the book. To the book, to the book. I think I've mentioned this before, but I am putting together a playlist. I have a playlist on my own YouTube channel of all of these shows, and I'm putting together very slowly a playlist of just the stories that we write together. So you can, I don't know, amuse yourself thusly. Or get inspired and illustrate something, or build a prop, or I don't know, I like our microfictions, and I like my microfictions. If you weren't aware, I have a podcast full of microfictions called The GlamourHobo Field Notes. And yeah, it's I just love little tiny stories. So I hope you do too. Shall we jump in? Chapter 2, Station 11, by Emily St. John Mandel. We've got our caps, we've got a beverage. The people who are lurking and watching are lurking and watching. I think we might be able to get to the after times. Nope, I think we're still going to be in the apocalypse tonight. Okay, let's go. Chapter 2. There were few people left at the Elgin Theatre now. A woman washing costumes and wardrobe, a man ironing other costumes nearby, an actress, the one who'd play Cordelia, drinking tequila backstage with the assistant stage manager. A young stagehand mopping the stage and nodding his head in time to the music on his iPod. In a dressing room, the woman whose job it was to watch the child actresses was trying to console the sobbing little girl who'd been on stage when Arthur died. 6 stragglers had drifted to the bar in the lobby, where a bartender mercifully remained. The stage manager was there, also Edgar and Gloucester, a makeup artist, Goneril, and an executive producer who'd been in the audience. At the moment when Jeevan was wading into the snowdrifts at Allen Gardens, the bartender was pouring whiskey for Goneril. The conversation had turned to informing Arthur's next of kin. But who was his family? Goneril was perched on a bar stool. Her eyes were red. Without makeup, she had a face like marble, the palest and most flawless skin the bartender had ever seen. She seemed much smaller offstage, also much less evil. Who did he have? He had one son, the makeup artist said. Tyler. How old? 7 or 8? The makeup artist knew exactly how old Arthur's son was, but didn't want to let on that he read gossip magazines. I think maybe he lives with his mother in Israel, maybe Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. He knew it was Jerusalem. Oh, right, that blonde actress. Elizabeth, wasn't it? Eliza? Something like that. Ex-wife number 3, said the producer. I think the kid's mother was ex-wife number 2. Poor kid. Did Arthur have anyone he was close with? This provoked an uncomfortable silence. Arthur had been carrying on an affair with the woman who looked after the child actresses. Everyone present knew about it except the producer, who none of them knew if the others knew, so Gloucester was the one who said the woman's name. Where's Tanya? Who's Tanya? The producer asked. One of the kids hasn't been picked up yet. I think Tanya's in the kids' dressing room. The stage manager had never seen anyone die before, and he wanted a cigarette. Well, who else is there? Tanya, the little boy, all those ex-wives. Anybody else? Siblings? Parents? Who's Tanya? The producer asked again. How many ex-wives are we talking about here? The bartender was polishing a glass. He has a brother, the makeup artist said, but I can't remember his name. I just remember him saying that he had a younger brother. I think there were maybe 3 or 4, Goneril said, talking about ex-wives. 3? 3, the makeup artist was blinking away tears. But I don't know if the latest divorce has been finalized. So Arthur wasn't married to anyone at the time of... He wasn't married to anyone tonight? The producer knew this sounded foolish, but he didn't know how else to phrase it. Arthur Leander had walked into the theater just a few hours ago, and it was inconceivable that he wouldn't walk in again tomorrow. 3 divorces. Can you imagine? He was recently divorced himself. He was trying to think of that last thing Arthur had said to him, something about blocking in the second act. He wished he could remember. Has anyone been informed? Who do we call? I should call his lawyer, the producer said. This solution was inarguable, but so depressing that the group drank for several minutes in silence before anyone could bring themselves to speak. His lawyer, the bartender said finally. Christ, what a thing. You die and they call your lawyer. Who else is there? His agent? The 7-year-old? The ex-wives? Tanya? I know. It's just a hell of a thing. They were silent again. Someone made a comment about the snow coming down hard, and it was. They could see it through the glass door at the far end of the lobby. From the bar, the snow was almost abstract, a film about bad weather on a deserted street. Well, here's to Arthur. In the children's dressing room, Tanya was giving Kirsten a paperweight. Here, she said as she placed it into Kirsten's hand. I'm going to keep trying to reach your parents, and you just try to stop crying and look at this pretty thing. And Kirsten, teary-eyed and breathless, a few days shy of her 8th birthday, gazed at the object and thought it was the most beautiful, the most wonderful, the strangest thing anyone had ever given her. It was a lump of glass with a storm cloud trapped inside. In the lobby, the people gathered at the bar clinked their glasses together. To Arthur, they said. They drank for a few more minutes, and then they went their separate ways into the storm. Of all of them at the bar that night, the bartender was the one who survived the longest. He died 3 weeks later, on the road out of the city. Chapter 3. Jeevan wandered alone in Allen Gardens. He let the cool light of the greenhouse draw him like a beacon. Snowdrifts halfway to his knees by now, the the childhood pleasure of being the first to leave footprints. When he looked in, he was soothed by the interior paradise, tropical flowers blurred by fogged glass, palm fronds whose shapes reminded him of a long-ago vacation in Cuba. He would go to see his brother, he decided. He very much wanted to tell Frank about the evening, both the awfulness of Arthur's death and the revelation that being a paramedic was the right thing to do with his life. Up until tonight, he hadn't been certain. He'd been searching for a profession for so long now. He'd been a bartender, a paparazzo, an entertainment journalist, and a paparazzo again, and then once again a bartender, and this was just in the past dozen years. Frank lived in a glass tower on the south edge of the city, overlooking the lake. Jeevan left the park and waited a while on the sidewalk, jumping up and down for warmth, boarded a streetcar that floated like a ship out of the night, and leaned his forehead on the window as it inched along Carlton Street back the way he had come. The storm was almost a whiteout now, the streetcar moving at a walking pace. His hands ached from compressing Arthur's unwilling heart. The sadness of it. Memories of photographing Arthur in Hollywood all those years ago. He was thinking of the little girl, Kirsten Raymond, bright in her stage makeup. The cardiologist kneeling in his gray suit, the lines of Arthur's face, his last words. The wren. And this made him think of birds. Frank with his binoculars, the few times they'd been bird-watching together. Laura's favorite summer dress, which was blue with a storm of yellow parrots. Laura, what would become of them? It was still possible that he might go home later, or that at any moment she might call and apologize. He was almost back where he'd started now. The theater closed up and darkened a few blocks from the south. The streetcar stopped just short of Yonge Street, and he saw that a car had spun out in the middle of the tracks, 3 people pushing while its tires spun in the snow. His phone vibrated again in his pocket, but this time it wasn't Laura. Hua, he said. He thought of Hua as his closest friend, though they rarely saw one another. They'd tended bar together for a couple years just after university while Hua studied for his MCAT and Jeevan tried unsuccessfully to establish himself as a wedding photographer. And then Jeevan had followed another friend to Los Angeles to take pictures of actors while Hua had gone off to medical school. Now, Hua worked long hours at Toronto General. "You've been watching the news?" Hua spoke in a peculiar intensity. "Tonight? No, I had theater tickets. Actually, you wouldn't believe what happened. Wait, listen. I need you to tell me honestly. Will it send you into one of your panic attacks if I tell you something really, really bad?" "I haven't had an anxiety attack in 3 years. My doctor said the whole thing was just a temporary stress-related situation. You know that." "Okay. You've heard of the Georgia flu?" "Sure." "You know I try to follow the news." A story had broken the day before about an alarming new flu in the Republic of Georgia, conflicting reports about mortality rates and death tolls. Details had been sketchy. The name the news outlets were going with, the Georgia flu, had struck Jeevan as disarmingly pretty. "I've got a patient in the ICU," Hua said. 16-year-old girl flew in from Moscow last night, presented with flu symptoms at the ER early this morning. Only now did Jeevan hear the exhaustion in Hua's voice. "It's not looking good for her. Well, by mid-morning we've got 12 more patients. Same symptoms. Turns out they were all on the same flight. They all start feeling sick on the plane." "Relatives? Friends of the first patient?" "No relation whatsoever. They all just boarded the same flight out of Moscow. The 16-year-old? I don't think she'll make it." So there's this initial group of patients, the Moscow passengers. Then this afternoon, a new patient comes in. Same symptoms, but this one wasn't on the flight. This one's an employee at the airport. I'm not sure what a gate agent. I'm saying his only contact with other patients was speaking with one of them about where to board the hotel shuttle. Oh. That sounds bad. The streetcar was still trapped behind the stuck car. So I guess you're working late tonight? You remember the SARS epidemic? Huas asked. The conversation we had? I remember calling you from Los Angeles when I heard your hospital was quarantined, but I don't remember what I said. You were freaking out. I had to talk you down. Okay, I guess I do remember that. But look, in my defense, they made it sound pretty. You told me to call you if there was ever a real epidemic. I remember. We've admitted over 200 flu patients since this morning, Hua said. 160 in the past 3 hours. 15 of them have died. The ER is full of new cases. We've got beds parked in hallways. Health Canada is about to make an announcement. It wasn't only exhaustion, Jeevan realized. Hua was afraid. Jeevan pulled the bell cord and made his way to the rear door. He found himself glancing at the other passengers, the young woman with groceries, the man in the business suit playing a game on his cell phone, the elderly couple conversing quietly in Hindi. Had any of them come from the airport? He was aware of all of them breathing around him. I know how paranoid you can get, Hua said. Believe me, you're the last person I'd call if I thought it was nothing, but Jeevan banged the palm of his hand into the door's glass pane. Who had touched the door before him? The driver glared over his shoulder, but let him out. Jeevan stepped into the storm, and the doors swished shut behind him. But you don't think it's nothing. Jeevan was walking past the stuck car, wheels spinning uselessly in the snow. Yonge Street was just ahead. I'm certain it's nothing. It isn't nothing. Listen, I have to get back to work. Hua, you've been working with these patients all day? I'm fine, Jeevan. I'll be fine. I have to go. I'll call you later. Jeevan put the phone in his pocket and walked on through the snow, turned south down Yonge Street toward the lake and the tower where his brother lived. Are you fine, Hua, my old friend, or will you be fine? He was deeply unsettled. The lights of the Elgin Theatre just ahead, the interior of the theatre was darkened now, the posters still advertising King Lear, with Arthur gazing up into the blue light with flowers in his hair and the dead Cordelia limp in his arms. Jeevan stood for a while looking at the posters. He walked on slowly, thinking of Hua's strange call. Yonge Street was all but deserted. He stopped to catch his breath in the doorway of a store that sold suitcases and watched a taxi ease its way slowly down the unplowed street. The storm caught in its headlights, and this vision, snow and lights, transported him back for a moment into the strange effect of the storm at the Elgin Theatre. He shook his head to dispel the image of Arthur's blank stare and moved on in an exhausted daze through the shadows and orange lights under the Gardiner Expressway to Toronto's glassy southern edge. The snowstorm was wilder down in Queens Quay, wind cutting across the lake. Jeevan had finally reached Frank's building when Hua called him again. I've been thinking about you, Jeevan said. Is it really? Listen, Hua said. You have to get out of the city. What? Tonight? What's going on? I don't know, Jeevan. That's the short answer. I don't know what's going on. It's a flu, that much is obvious, but I've never seen anything like it. It's so fast. It just seems to spread so quickly. It's getting worse. The ER is full, which is a problem because at this point, half the ER staff are too sick to work. They got sick from the patients? In the lobby of Frank's building, the night doorman flipped through the newspaper. An abstract painting of gray and red lit up on the wall above and behind him. Doorman and painting reflected in the streaks of the polished floor. It's the fastest incubation period I've ever seen. I just saw a patient. She works as an orderly here at the hospital, on duty when the first patient started coming in this morning. She started feeling sick a few hours into her shift, went home early. Her boyfriend drove her back 2 hours ago, and now she's on a ventilator. You get exposed to this, and you're sick within hours. You think it's going to spread outside the hospital? Jeevan was having some difficulty keeping his thoughts straight. No, I know it's outside the hospital. It's a full-on epidemic. If it's spreading here, it's spreading through the city, and I've never seen anything like it. You're saying I'm saying you should leave now. Or if you can't leave, at least stock up on food and stay in your apartment. I have to make some more calls." He hung up. The night doorman turned a newspaper page. If it had been anyone other than Hua, Jeevan wouldn't have believed it. But he had never known a man with a greater gift for understatement. If Hua said there was an epidemic, then epidemic wasn't a strong enough word. Jeevan was crushed by a sudden certainty that this was it. That this illness Hua was describing was going to be the divide between the before and the after, a line drawn through his life. It occurred to Jeevan that there might not be much time. He turned away from Frank's building and past the darkened coffee shop on the pier and tiny harbor filled with snow-laden pleasure boats, into the grocery store on the harbor's other side. He stood just inside for a beat, blinking in the light. Only 1 or 2 other customers drifted through the aisles. He felt that he should call someone, but who? Hua was his only close friend. He'd seen his brother in a few minutes. His parents were dead, and he couldn't quite bring himself to talk to Laura. He would wait until he got to Frank's, he decided. He'd check the news when he got there, and then he'd go through the contacts in his phone and call everyone he knew. There was a small television mounted above the film development counter showing closed-caption news. Jeevan drifted towards it. Shots of a broadcaster standing outside Toronto General in the snow. White text scrolling past her head. Toronto General and 2 other local hospitals had been placed under isolation. Health Canada was confirming an outbreak of the Georgia flu. They weren't releasing numbers at this time, but there had been fatalities and more information was forthcoming. There were suggestions that Georgian and Russian officials had been somewhat less than transparent about the severity of the crisis there. Officials requested that everyone please try their best to stay calm. Jeevan's understanding of disaster preparedness was based entirely on action movies, but on the other hand, he'd seen a lot of action movies. He started with water, filled one of the oversized shopping carts with as many cases of bottles as he could fit. There was a moment of doubt on the way to the cash register, straining against the weight of the cart. Was he overreacting? But he was committed. He decided. It was too late to turn back. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "I'm parked just outside. I'll bring the cart back." The clerk nodded, tired. She was young, early 20s probably, with dark bangs that kept pushing out of her eyes. He forced the impossibly heavy cart outside and half pushed, half skidded through the snow to the exit. There was a ramp down to the small park-like arrangement of benches and planters. The cart gained speed on the incline and bogged down in a deep snow, slid sideways into a planter. It was 11:20. The supermarket closed in 40 minutes. He was imagining how long it would take to bring the cart up to Frank's apartment, to unload it, the time required for explanations and tedious reassurances of sanity before he could return to the grocery store for more supplies. Could there be any harm in leaving the cart here just for a moment? There was no one on the street. He called Hua on his way back into the store. "What's happening now?" Jeevan moved quickly through the store while Hua spoke. Another case of water. Jeevan was under the impression that one can never have too much. And cans of food, all the tuna and beans and soup on the shelf, pasta, anything that looked like it might last a while. The hospital was full of flu patients, and the situation was identical at the other hospitals in the city. The ambulance service was overwhelmed. 37 patients had died, including every patient who'd been on the Moscow flight and 2 ER nurses who'd been on duty when the first patients came in. Jeevan was standing by the cash register again, the clerk scanning his cans and packages. Hua said he'd called his wife and told her to take the kids and leave the city tonight, but not by airplane. The part of the evening that had transpired at the Elgin Theater seemed like an impossibly different lifetime. The clerk was moving very slowly. Jeevan passed her a credit card, and she scrutinized it, though she hadn't just seen it 5 or 10 minutes ago. "Take Laura and your brother. Leave the city tonight." "I can't leave the city tonight, not with my brother. I can't rent a wheelchair van at this hour." In response, there was only a muffled sound. Hua was coughing. "Are you sick?" Jeevan was pushing the cart towards the door. "Good night, Jeevan." Hua disconnected, and Jeevan was alone in the snow. He felt possessed. The next cart was all toilet paper. The cart after that was more canned goods, all frozen meat and aspirin, garbage bags, bleach, duct tape. "I work for a charity," he told the girl behind the cash register. His third and fourth time through, but she wasn't paying much attention to him. She kept glancing up at the small television above the film development counter and ringing his items through on autopilot. Jeevan called Laura on his 6th trip through the store, but his call went to voicemail. "Laura," he began. Laura, he thought it better to speak her name directly, and it was already almost 11:50. There wasn't time for this. Filling another cart with food, moving quickly through the bread and flour-scented world, their almost gone place, thinking of Frank in his 22nd floor apartment high up in the snowstorm, and with his insomnia and his book project and his day-old New York Times and his Beethoven. Jeevan wanted desperately to reach him. He decided to call Laura later. Changed his mind and called the home line while he was standing at the checkout counter, trying to avoid making eye contact with the clerk. "Jeevan, where are you?" Laura sounded slightly accusatory. He handed over his credit card. "Are you watching the news?" "Should I be?" "There's a flu epidemic, Laura. It's serious. That thing in Russia or whatever, I know about that. It's here now. It's worse than anyone thought. It's just been talking to Hua. You have to leave the city." He glanced up at just in time to see the look the checkout girl gave him. "Have to? What? Where are you, Jeevan?" He was signing his name on the slip, struggling with the cart towards the exit, where the order of the store ended and the frenzy of the storm began. It was difficult to steer the cart with one hand. There were already 5 carts parked haphazardly between benches and planters dusted now with snow. "Just turn on the news, Laura." "You know, I don't like to watch the news before bed. Are you having a panic attack?" "What? No, I'm going to my brother's place to make sure he's okay." "Why wouldn't he be?" "You're not even listening. You never listen to me." Jeevan knew this was a petty thing to say in the face of a probable flu pandemic, but he just couldn't resist. He plowed the cart into the others and dashed back into the store. "I can't believe you left me at the theater. You just left me in the theater performing CPR on a dead actor." "Jeevan, tell me where you are." "I'm in a grocery store." It was 11:55. This last cart was all Grace items: vegetables, fruit, bags of oranges and lemons, tea, coffee, crackers, salt, preserved cakes. "Look, Laura, I don't want to argue. This flu's serious, and it's fast." "What's fast?" "This flu, Laura. It's really fast. Hua told me it's spreading so quickly. I think you should get out of the city." At the last moment, he added a bouquet of daffodils. "What? Jeevan, you're healthy enough to get on an airplane, and then you're dead a day later. I'm going to stay with my brother. I think you should pack up now and go to your mother's place before everyone finds out and the roads get clogged up." "Jeevan, I'm concerned. This sounds paranoid to me. I'm sorry I left you at the theater. I just really had a headache. Please turn on the news. Go read it online something." "Jeevan, please tell me where you are, and I'll just do it, Laura, please." And then he hung up, because he was at the checkout counter for the last time now, and the moment to talk to Laura had passed. He was trying hard not to think of Hua. "We're about to close," the clerk said. "This is my last time through. You must think up a nut." "I've seen worse." He'd scared her, he realized. She'd heard something on his phone calls, and there was a television with its unsettling news. Well, just trying to prepare. For what? "You never know when something disastrous might happen," Jeevan said. "That?" She gestured towards the television. "It'll be like SARS. They made such a big deal about it, and then it blew over so fast." She didn't sound entirely convinced. "This isn't like SARS. You should get out of the city." He'd only wanted to be truthful, perhaps to help her in some way, but he saw immediately that he'd made a mistake. She was scared, but also, she thought he was insane. She stared flatly at him as she rang up the final few items a moment later, and he was outside in the snow again, a goateed young man from the produce department locking the doors behind him. Standing outside with 7 enormous shopping carts to transport through the snow to his brother's apartment, soaked in sweat and also freezing, feeling foolish and afraid and a little crazy, Hua at the edge of every thought. It took the better part of an hour to push the shopping carts one at a time through the snow and across to his brother's lobby, and then maneuver them into the freight elevator for unscheduled use of which Juven had to bribe the night doorman, and to move them in shifts up to the 22nd floor. I'm a survivalist, Juven said. We don't get many of those here, the doorman said. That's what makes it such a good place for this, Juven said a little wildly. A good place for what? For survivalism. I see, said the doorman. $60 later, Jeevan was alone outside his brother's apartment. The carts lined up down the corridor. Perhaps, he thought, he should have called ahead from the grocery store. It was 1 a.m. on a Thursday night, the corridor all closed doors and silence. Jeevan, Frank said when he came to the door. An unexpected pleasure. Jeevan didn't know how to explain himself, so he stepped back and gestured weakly at the carts instead of speaking. Frank maneuvered his wheelchair forward and peered down the hall. I see you went shopping. And that's it for tonight. We are at our time. How are you feeling? Is it a little unsettling? We haven't even gotten to the part where there's a theatrical troupe that does Shakespeare in the apocalypse. That's coming next. Oh, that's nice, Sally. I'm glad. It's really a wonderful book. It's just so it's so unsettling. It was really a good book. It's one of my favorites. It was given to me as a gift, actually, um, in 2019, late in 2019. And then I gave it as a gift to a friend who read it at the beginning of 2020. And it was almost the reason, it was how I found out actually about the COVID pandemic, because I had gifted it to him and we were just chatting one day and he said, I really loved the book, but I gotta say, it really puts this flu into worrisome perspective. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, you don't know? Have you looked at the news? And he sent me a link, and that is how I learned about COVID-19 in January of 2020. And I almost canceled my trip to Australia because there were wildfires in Australia and the pandemic was getting bigger and bigger, but like in a way that it was nowhere near Europe yet or America. But it was in Asia, and I was like, well, Australia's right there, and it's a really close relationship. And so if it's in Asia, it's gonna get to Australia. Like, what do I do? And no one in Australia seemed worried. Not a single person seemed worried. It only started being trouble on like March 11th. People started really thinking about it and going, I think we might have to make some plans. And I was on a plane on March 12th, and we were all locked down on like March 13th or 14th. So, dear ones, it is my pleasure and my privilege with you to be here with you on Monday nights, to read to you, to write country songs with you, to rant about anything. I hope that you are all warm and well hydrated, and I do encourage you all to take care of each other out there in the world. So, good night, dear ones. Good night.